Hey guys, welcome back for another episode. And today we are going to be going over Black Mirror Season 3. Hey, if you guys can just do me a small, tiny little favor and please smash the like button. And also, if you guys haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you could be seeing more content. But anyway, let's get back on the topic. So, Black Mirror Season 3. So, this season was like 6 episodes. So, it was about like 2 episodes longer than the last season was. And I have to say, going on from these episodes, let's start with the first one. First one, it was all about social media ratings. So, basically, everywhere people went and stuff, everyone basically was able to see what your rating was, and literally like 5 was like literally the best. But like, I guess, like, if you had to be the whole bougie and everything, you basically had to be over a 4, like probably like a 4.2 and up, in order to be like, oh yeah, you're cool. Anyone who's basically like 3.5, who's basically like, I say, between the twos and the threes were basically like average, and then anyone else who was less, you know, I guess in regular society, I guess you would just been like, they're considering you as trash. And I felt like, with that very first episode, they were setting the tone where like, okay, people were looking for, hey, if you left me with a memorable experience, I'll rate your score higher. And some people became really desperate with that score. So, like, basically, if you had a really high score, it almost seemed like, it's almost like seemed like your life was a lot more faker than it actually really was, because if you had such that high score, you had to keep up with the status quo of that image going on in order to kind of keep living that type of lifestyle, especially if you wanted to get a house. Because I was like, wait, what? You need to get a house. It's like, in order to get a really nice house in a nice neighborhood, you had to have a good rating. And or if you wanted to get like a really nice first class seat, you had to have a high rating. So I felt like the rating system, it was cool, but then at the same time, like, once you start, bearing everyone with rudimentary numbers, where basically like 5 star was the best and 1 star or less was like totally the West, it was just it definitely, like, everyone basically started to become like they were a product in itself. And that was just the first episode. The second one, I remember looking at it, and it was talking about the second one, talking about how the main character, he was an adventurer. He went all over the world. One thing that was a little bit disturbing, he kept ignoring his mom. His mom called, never picked up. His mom called in another place whilst he went to visit. He never picked up. And then he was at his final location, and this girl, he meets up. He has a one night stand with her. Everything's going perfectly fine until he's ready to almost go home. And then he finds out, well, I'm like kind of trapped here, so now I need to figure out, he hears about this program that's through, I guess, this app that he has that allows him to find like little side jobs here and there. And I mean, like, that side job was more deadlier than it needed to be, you know? I mean, the fact of the matter is, it was probably one of the first episodes they had where there was horror. Because, with the experiment he was going in, the company that was doing the actual test, they wanted to see how would he deal with being scared. And, to him, it was really real. But, if you saw the time space of what really transpires, it kind of makes you think of like, whoa. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that movie, Interstellar. There was like, there was a scene in that movie where like they were talking about the time the time relativity going on, where like the time in our world versus the time on that planet was much different. So like being on that planet, it ate up more of your time. And in some aspects, in the second episode of Black Mirror, for the third season, he really wasn't in there that long. In fact, if you really think about it, every scenario he was kind of in, it was almost like he was there for just 1 second. And I was just like, dude, it was just crazy. So, let's move on. Let's go to the third episode. Third episode, characters frightened. He's living a normal life until he basically gets blackmailed. Now, what the crazy part was? It just wasn't only him. It was a couple other people who was getting blackmailed as well too. And I was like, no one didn't stop to think like, I'm not gonna do it, or they just threw their phone away. It was just like, I just felt like the major content, like they were just questioning themselves, like, do I want to really do this or not? And some of these people were frightened as heck. And, it definitely, unfortunately, it was kind of it wasn't satisfying for them, for the people who were going through the whole process. Well, I'm not the ones giving the orders. They were having a good time, but the people who were actually following the actual orders all throughout it, they wasn't having a fun time at all. It was almost a very stressful scene. Unlike the people who were actually, they sent out the order to them. They're the ones who weren't really taking any risks at all. And yeah, with that one, that was definitely like, it came out as kind of a sad, but it was like, it was somewhat suspected too. And then the fourth one, that was my favorite episode of the whole season. Like, everyone was happy. You kind of had like people dancing and partying, but behind that whole facade going on, it was literally old people who was just trying to literally live their lives like they were young again. And and the main character, she found love. She found love in this space of where she was at with other old people in the space. Now, mind you, in the game space that they were in, everyone in themselves were like basically young. They were moving everything, while in reality, it wasn't as so pretty. So, I mean, in this case where like, and all of the elderly was like, they were really, they were really enjoying themselves. And I mean, it was, I glad that in some ways it was definitely bittersweet ending, but I'm glad that in the end that like the characters were happy with each other, because I mean, like, you found love when, like, I mean, in reality, it would have never happened. But like, for them to be inside this game space and us, it allowed them to express themselves and to, have fun. They were able to play it fast and loose in that game world. It was one of those type of instances where, like, you wasn't expecting it to be like that until like you started to see where like I think like the one instance of it was when the girl, one of the characters punched the mirror and then it goes back to normal. You thought they had some powers, but that's what I first thought, but they actually didn't. And then let's go to the next one. The fifth episode was literally about a guy who was a soldier. He was in the war with these other soldier guys, and they were trying to kill these creatures called roach. To sum up, from when I gathered from it was like basically like the military owned it. Those soldiers, they owned it. They owned it, all those soldiers. Like, literally, even if they were going to be discharged in some sort of way, they still kind of owned you. Not fully if you discharged, but like basically to a certain degree, they basically did. And I mean, like, the guy, he was having like mental issue problems, but he got checked out from the doctors and from the therapist, and like everything seems like perfectly okay. But like everything wasn't really okay because like he got into a bit of a struggle with this one roach, even though he killed it, ever since then after that, it set the whole tone where like he was not okay. And like literally, I mean, if you think about it, like, they where the story left you, this left you with an ultimatum: does he do it or not? And I mean, it was like yeah, you're fighting, you're fighting these things, you're coming back home, and then you're able to go to sleep and be able to play with things that's integrated with your with this integrated system that you have in your body. And and now you having a glitch, but everyone everyone that you work with, sees you like, oh yeah, like everything's perfectly fine. And you're like, no, something is not fine with my system. And he has this gut feeling inside of him where like, I've got to, like, I think in the end he doesn't figure out, but I believe he does make a decision, you know. And then last but not least, the sixth episode was basically, it was like technology that was good for the environment. Unfortunately, it turned for the worse reality. I mean, you were thinking of, oh, it's like, it was cool, like, okay, there was someone who got murdered, but the murders were being tagged to social media. But what people don't realize was that, like, even though people were voting people to basically clam for, unfortunately, other people's demise, a bigger scheme was playing behind the scenes without the public really even realizing. And for the most part, like, the detectives in the end, they figured out what was going on. Oh my god. They figured out what was going on. And it turned out for the worse, from what I gathered. So, I mean, it was like you had these bugs that was basically supposed to be environmental for the environment, but unfortunately, like, a lot of the bugs that were flying around there and stuff, and mind you, this was like robotic bugs. It was just the fact of the matter is, like, you had this major corporation who basically owned all of these type of these robotic bugs that were able to help out the environment and make make like certain flowers thrive, even make some of the areas a lot more better. It turned into dire consequences because usually, they usually say it's not the people on the outside you have to worry about more. It's usually the people more in the inside that know. And someone knew their systems and knew it way too well for them to even really stop it, because they didn't even do, it just seems like they didn't even do all the things. And it reminds me of like, I forgot, there was like sci-fi that played this movie where it was like bees, but bees was like a horrible killer. Well, you kind of had this same instance going on. Only difference is it was a larger scale. I mean, unfortunately, from what I've from this, like, this episode definitely ended the season within a bang. But it was like, man, it's like that one decision cost so many lives to be affected. It was just like almost unreal to a certain extent. And then you had this lady literally being questioned by all the stuff that happened, and it was just like, it was just mind blowing. It was just mind blowing. So, guys, tell me. Forgot one more thing. So, I would say overall this season I'll give it a B, just a regular B. It's not going to be a B plus. I felt like in some ways that this season was definitely like the whole major theme about it was questioning was this the correct decision for me? And for a lot of ways, that decision that they decided to create it, the main character decided for themselves, it almost seemed like it was deadlier than it needed to be, to a certain degree, because it was more like it was like a poor judgment decision to be making. So on that note, if you guys liked what you heard or seen here, please please hit the like button. Also, don't forget, if you have any comments or suggestions, or heck, if you like to tell me what you thought of the third season, just put it down in the comments below. And yeah, that's it. Until next time, I'll see you guys next Monday. Pow!